Broads Media.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. Chuck Fletcher has been fired, and it's a magnificent day. It's a beautiful day. It's a fantastic day. It's a glorious day. It's an incredible day because I don't have to see that man's face again in my entire life, and there's nothing more I wanted in life than that. Look, I need to thank a lot of you out there. You heard me correctly. Your voice was heard. I promise you that. I guarantee you that. I spoke to people who are very involved in what's happening right now within those walls at the Wells Fargo Center. The Flyers heard you. Comcast heard you. Everyone heard you. So if you put a brown paper bag on your face, thank you. If you tweeted your disgust on social media, thank you. If you called in to Sports Talk Radio, thank you. We had Anthony Sanfilippo on the show today, and he said that the last few days has been humbling, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the Flyers organization, they have been pretty damn aware of what's been said about them, and it's been a wild last 72 hours of realizing that this is no good, that this needs to be changed. Now, you can ask the question, why? Why would it take the frustration? Why couldn't you just see it with your own two eyeballs? Why didn't you just look at the track record of Chuck Fletcher before bringing him in when you saw what he did in Minnesota? Why hold that attachment to what his dad did and think automatically that Chuck Fletcher would be one of the greatest GMs in history of the sport? Like, you should just realize that the contracts were piss poor, that the talent was bad, everything that was going wrong, the cap space, spending a lot of money on certain players and giving them some lengthy deals. It was disturbing. That should have been what told you that Chuck Fletcher needed to be fired, not the fans stopping the payments for the season tickets. But once again, I thank you because you did make a change. The Flyers were going to do this at the end of the season. Now, you may ask, why would he even have the opportunity to do the trade deadline if the Flyers knew he wasn't good at his job enough to keep the job? He was going to get canned anyway. And I guess the only thing I could come up with when I try and process that part is they believed that trading JVR was so basic and so standard that no one could mess that up. We heard Frank Saravalli say that he was asking for a second and a third. And by no means do I feel he gets the benefit of the doubt trying to be savvy and get more than what JVR is worth and trying to play the leverage game. That's not what was going on. Chuck Fletcher truly believed that JVR was worth a second and a third round pick in today's market. That's just being insanely out of touch. That's having zero knowledge of the trade market. And the fact that you let him stay here instead of getting anything for him is unbelievable. So they thought that Chuck was competent enough to do the most basic trade in sports. And he screwed it up. And then the town hall happened. And fans there booed him as he walked up on stage. And it's a combination of all of those things. And when it happened, they said, we need to look forward. This is what I will say, though, after having some conversations. I do believe that their heart and their head is in the right space moving forward. Multi-years was thrown around a lot, meaning this is going to be a little bit. But we knew that. It's unfortunate that we're here, but I'm going to look at it this way. I can't take back any contracts. I can't take back any time in my life watching this. But you can move forward. And you can at least see a plan that can make sense to getting this back on the right track. And that's all we can ask for right now. You get two options. You figure it out, or you continue this mess. And the fact that it seems like they're bought into figuring this thing out is important. Bobby Clark, Homer, Bill Barber. I believe there's going to be change in that area. Now, I saw social media having a bit of outcry when the 32 Thoughts podcast with Elliot Friedman dropped and the names Eric Lindros was dropped. Chris Pronger was dropped because the interim GM is Danny Briere, if I failed to mention that already. So because it's former Flyer Danny Briere who's going to be getting the job. That's another thing Anthony Sanfilippo said on the show was, book it. Danny Briere will become the general manager after the interim tag is off. All right. A few days ago, I wanted to clean house and I wanted everybody gone. There's a part of me that's intrigued because I think he's been working towards this. I think he's been studying. I think he's passionate. I think he cares. And I think he really believes in himself as a GM. And he's been putting in the work to accomplish himself the best he possibly can in this position. Closer to the most recent style of play, not players who are 80 years old. Legitimate, understands the game of hockey. I do believe Danny Briere does. So fine. I went back and listened to the 32 Thoughts pod, though, because if you just saw the quotes that were thrown around, I don't know if it gets the full context. It didn't seem as if that's where they were definitely leaning. It was just mentioned that they know the Flyers think highly of Eric Lindros. That doesn't necessarily mean Eric Lindros is willing to be a front office member right now. You have the president of hockey operations role available. Unless Danny Briere, because Chuck Fletcher was both GM and president. Is Danny Briere going to be the GM? Is he going to be the president of hockey ops? And then someone else slides into the GM role. I think it's more, if you look at the Phillies, it might be the perfect example. Dave Dombrowski, president of baseball ops, and then Sam Fold is the GM. I think Danny Briere is going to be the Sam Fold. He'd be the GM, and then you bring someone in with the hockey ops side that can really help out and do the right thing. But Elliot Friedman didn't say it with authority. Maybe that's the wrong word, but he didn't say it with like definition in his tone. It bothers me a little bit that they're almost going back to the same well. Chris Pronger back in 2017 or so had a little bit involved in some front office stuff. But you know what I would do? I would call Boston, and I'd go look at their assistant GM, and I'd go pluck from an organization like that. That's what I would do. And say, take what Boston does and let's apply it here. Pasta, Bergeron, Brad Marchand, Charlie McAvoy. You see these stud players? And you see what they're able to do financially and how they're able to utilize money properly? Let's take that and let's do it here. I don't love the idea of Pronger. I don't love the idea of Lindros. I don't love it. Just because, unfortunately for the Flyers, that's what they've done forever. Is the once you're a Flyer, you're always a Flyer? And it irritates me a little bit. And I get that might sound contradicting because I am in a happy mood. And I do think that things are looking up. There are former players who are talented at these type of jobs. Look at what's happening in Detroit. Look what Steve Yzerman did in his career in a front office role. Bill Guerin is another name. There's plenty of examples. So I'm not automatically saying that someone who was a former Flyer is going to stink if they do get hired. But it's just more about the Ed Snyder way has costed this franchise for a bit of time. You just have to pick the right people to do it. I do believe that this is a step in the right direction. There's definitely more that needs to happen, but you can't snap your fingers and have all of it change within a second. There's a lot wrong here. There's a lot of fingerprints everywhere. Dave Scott might be gone. He might retire at the end, which brings in a new voice for Comcast. Here's what I'm thinking, though. John Tortorella is someone who gets it. John Tortorella is someone who I believe has been around the game long enough to know what the flow of the franchise needs to be. He's seen a lot. He's been in multiple different organizations. The Rangers, Vancouver, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, Columbus. He's seen the order of operations, maybe, is the way to describe it, throughout a lot of different franchises. I think he knows the base that needs to be set, the foundation. I've been pretty consistent on this. There's things I don't like in John Tortorella's game. I don't like scratching Sanheim in his hometown in a season like this. I don't like certain things he does. Benching players, I think he goes overboard. But when it comes to figuring out how to get this thing back on the right page, I have faith that he's willing to go through the grind to set the foundation properly, whether he's here by the end of it or not. And that's important to me because you have to strip it down. I'm hearing a lot of rumors, though, about some of these players that you think are untradeable. Kevin Hayes, there's some noise. There was a previous report about Columbus. So maybe Columbus is in on the Kevin Hayes thing. It's going to take time. But you're going to get rid of some of these guys. And you're going to look at who can still be here. Who in this organization can be a long-term piece. I believe Noah Cates is one. I believe they look at Konechny as one. I believe they look at Owen Tippett as one. I think they look at Scott Lawton as one. The problem is defensively, I don't know if there's many names. Unfortunately, Rasmus Ristolainen was signed here by Chuck. Sanheim got the big, fat extension, which made no sense whatsoever. And even the forwards that I mentioned are not top-line forwards. I think Travis Konechny is a second-line winger. So you don't have any top number one forwards. You don't. It's going to be hard to get them, too. Teams don't just give them away. And you don't have much to go get them. So you have to go through the draft. Go look at some of the studs that the Devils drafted over the year and look at what they're doing. Jack Hughes, Nico Heischer's their captain. You don't bat 1,000 drafting. But we're going to have to rely on a Tyson Forster, a Cutter Gauthier, who had 3 points in his first Hockey East Conference Hockey East Conference tournament game against UMass. His line was plus 11 with 9 points. He had a couple outstanding assists. Forster makes his NHL debut, and I thought he fit in. I thought he looked good. He looked the part. If you say that was his first NHL game, I'd say you're lying. You're crazy. Blocking shots, couple shots on net. He had the 2-on-1 where he passed it back door. I thought on maybe another day that could have went in. Like it was a really good dish back door. Just didn't work on that particular night. So he did the dirty work. Got in front of shots. These players need to develop, but it's going to be a growing process. This was step 1 of a 5-6 step process. It seems even from the Comcast level, there might be a new voice if Dave Scott's gone. And that trickles down. I do disagree a little bit, though, on the only way you're ever going to succeed is if Comcast sells. I don't love Comcast by any means when it comes to ownership of this team. If you have a competent GM and president of hockey operations, you succeed. That's what they need to nail. They need to nail that. They need to get rid of the old school guys that are telling them what to do. Bill Barber is teaching Dave Scott how to, I was going to say how to hockey, but he doesn't even know how to hockey. Bill Barber, that is, not in today's era, or else we wouldn't be in this predicament. If you have the right president of hockey operations and the right GM, you succeed. That doesn't take Comcast off the hook. But there is also some internal changes in that area, too, that we are going to see. So that is getting tweaked at the same time. Can you get the president and can you get the GM correct? If you do, you're going to see a better product on the ice. I think some of the guys that they look at for the future that's on the team right now, though, they're all third liners. A lot of them are third liners. Not much top six forwards. I have no idea what Sean Couturier is going to be at this point. At this point in his career, at this age, after this type of injury factor, who is he? Farabee. And this is where Tortorella is picking on him. Because to say it's not an excuse on what happened in the offseason, no, it's not an excuse, John. It's a serious physical issue. It's not an excuse. Him coming back as quickly as he did made no sense. When Farabee gets fully healthy and gets a season under his belt and is able to have a proper offseason to bulk up, get in the gym, prepare the right way, I don't think his body was ready because of the issues that he had to deal with. But there's no doubt he has the skill set. But Morgan Frost, it's another bottom guy. Lots of bottom guys. We need to get that upper echelon talent on the back end and up front, which will be a journey to get because you're in cap hell. And you're going to have to move some of those guys to the best of your ability, that is. Danny Briere, though, if he has his fingertips all over it, there is buzz around him being a smart hockey mind. Montreal was intrigued with him prior to the Flyers giving him that special assistant, the GM role. See, the thing is, there's fear that, well, he learned under Chuck Fletcher. Not really. Not really. Trust me, Danny Briere's not thinking, all right, remember everything Chuck Fletcher did. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm just going to do exactly what Chuck did because I was that assistant role. You think so? No one in their right mind would ever. Or else you'd be watching on TV like the rest of us. So I have no fear from that regard. Let's look at some text messages here on the Anytime Hotline, the text board. Lance from Kansas City says, until the faceless, soulless corporation sells the team, nothing will change. That, like I literally just said, I don't agree with that. I think if you nail the front office roles, things change. If Steve Yzerman was here and Comcast sold the team, or still own the team, excuse me, you'll have a fantastic hockey team. You'd have an incredible team. I promise you. No name. They have to get rid of all these old heads and move into the current game of the NHL. Talent and speed. Yup, they're missing talent. There is some speed involved. I think some guys can get their legs going, but there's no doubt you need more talent. You need someone who can score you 40 goals. You need someone who can walk around two defensemen and bury it top cheese, rip a nice snipe top shelf over the glove hand side, bar down. Like, you need legitimate playmakers, legitimate snipers, guys where teams who are playing against the Flyers go, all right, we need to watch out for number 7. We need to watch out for number 8. They're circling the name and the number on the whiteboard. When Boston is here, you go, watch out for that line. Watch out for Marchand. Watch out for what they can do because they dominate every single night. No one does that. Who are they afraid of? Owen Tippett? I think Owen Tippett showed some nice goal-scoring ability this year. And he can move. He can get going. When he gets going, he gets going. Who do you highlight? Konechny when he's healthy? Maybe. But that's really just because there's no one else. Konechny on a Stanley Cup winning team? No one's saying watch out for Konechny. There's probably 5 other players you say before you get to Konechny. Your top line, and then maybe your top D pairing. And then Konechny on the second line playing left wing. Maybe. Maybe. So that's the difference. Yes, speed and talent. Not Nick Delorier, not Zach McEwen, no Nick Sealer. None of that. I want real, serious studs. By the way, Giroux is tearing it up. What do you know? It was probably time for a facelift, okay? It was probably time for a new direction. Maybe. I still would have been all right with him here. But, just saying, for all the fools that think he can't play. Brian texted in, what's the proper way to feel as a Flyers fan today? I'm definitely happy Chuck is no longer here, but with how bad everything has become, it's hard for me to quickly get happy. They have to show me that they have a true sense of how to be successful before I jump on board again. That's not the first time I've heard that. It's not. We took calls all day, and it was, it's good. I'm obviously excited to know that the fraud's no longer here. But at the same time, there's still so much to go. If Bobby Clark is still here, you're going to be bad. That's just reality of it. And Elliot Friedman made it clear there's a lot of fingerprints and a lot of people talking and a lot of decision makers with the Flyers. Now, they went too far that way to try and defend Chuck because Chuck's a good guy. I don't care if Chuck's a good guy. He's a bad GM. And that's his job. His job is to be a GM. So if he's bad there, that's what I'm judging him on. I'm not the people police. I'm not here to judge him as a person. I'm here to judge him as a general manager. But they were like, well, Chuck's a good guy. And you do know that not every decision a GM makes is fully on the decision. Or is fully on the GM. And they're like, there's a lot of people in Philadelphia. Oh, stop it. Save it. We know. But that doesn't mean that Chuck gets a free pass. He deserves to be ripped just as intensely as every old school Flyer that's still there. Just as brutally. No free pass for anybody involved. I think you can find the balance between waving the pom-poms, recognizing that this is admitting. They say that with everything. Before you can actually get better, you have to admit that there's a problem. Well, admitting there's a problem is seriously important. But the convo I had today was, look, we get it. We get it. The Flyers get it. What happened can't happen. We're losing the fans. We're losing the city. And this is the worst the organization has ever been. We're not unaware. And there's going to be some serious, hard dialogue about what to do to get this thing right. Right now, that's all we can ask for. Like I said, as pieces get added or pieces get lost and get fired, we can react to those moves. But when we sit here right now and talk, there's two ways to go. That's it. There's two. You can either hear that, what I just said, or they continue to do what they were doing. So that's where the balance comes in. Yeah, there needs to be more. And there will be more. I promise you, I guarantee you, listen to me, there will be more. There's so much buzz going on. They get it. They're seriously willing to strip it the way it needs to be stripped. And I don't want this to sound contradicting. Again, it does seem a little backwards because normally a president comes in and that would hire a GM and then they would hire a head coach. Tortsy's not going anywhere. You got your interim GM that's basically going to be getting the job by the end of it. And then you get your president last. With that said, doesn't mean it wouldn't work. Just a little backwards. Torts' pedigree speaks for itself. Danny's, it's kind of to be determined or to be seen, to be proven. But if it's a Dave Dombrowski, Sam Fold concept, Dave's doing all the magic. Sam Fold's more in the learning process while studying Dave. Well, we know Danny Briere's true to the craft. He wants to excel in it. He wants to learn. He's like a sponge, willing to be in the trenches. This could be a good spot for him to continue that trend, to one day be a Bill Guerin. Look what happened to Minnesota, by the way, since Chuck Fletcher left. Newsflash. They look a lot better, don't they? Isn't that a wild concept? This text says, I wish I could get Chuck Fletcher toilet paper just so I could look at his face with blank on it one last time. It's cold out there. It's a cold world out there, Chuck. But you did this to yourself because you stunk at your job. You had every opportunity to not, except for the fact that you did. You're bad at it. You're the one to blame. Thank you all so much for listening. I'll catch you guys on the next one.